Okay. I'm glad people are doing pretty good. Hi, Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
This is Dan Funderburgh, and you are in New York City. It's 9 o'clock there. Is that right?
Yeah, in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. Okay. And is that your studio?
Yeah, I realize I don't have good lighting on me. If I
Okay.
stay by my computer, I can kind of get that glow. But
Okay, great.
I'm not used to filming me.
That's all right. You're looking great,
Thanks.
like a movie star. It's like a
Hmm.
lot of a lot of glamorous backlighting.
Real, I don't know.
So we know each other from mutual friend Jen Nielsen, and Jen and I are friends from when I lived there. And you are a designer. I'm going to say designer artist because are you all right with that?
Yeah,
Designer artist.
that's normally I describe myself as that because I can't decide.
Yeah. And I've worked a long time as an illustrator. I'm an artist, but I have gotten comments that my work sometimes looks like illustration. So I kind of go I kind of go in that halfway mark too. And that might be something we want to talk about tonight, as we get to know each other, about maybe what's the difference between design and art, or the other thing we talked about maybe was teaching, but we'll see what comes up. Hi, Paula. Just some new people have come in. I just want to let everybody know. Doodle with me is every Friday, and a new guest every Friday. And I'm very happy to have Dan with me here tonight. Some of you may know him who are coming in. And just to let you know, it's 30 minutes long, and we basically chat, doodle together. I'm inviting you all to join us in doing that. Also, too, folks want to animate the comment section and talk back and forth. That's a great part of this live interaction. So, thanks for coming. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I guess we could set up our cameras to the paper. Have you been working on any particular projects lately, or?
Um, Me.
Yeah.
Um, yes. Uh, Mostly I've been trying to prepare for teaching a class at SVA.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I guess behind me got
Uh-huh.
a flag, a big peace flag that I made this
Nice.
few months ago.
Uh-huh.
Um, really like flags. And then up there that you can't really see, I got a closer version. Um,
Okay.
during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time drawing plants. We moved to a new place with better light, and so I
Oh,
started
cool.
getting all these plants, and then I started drawing them. And then I thought, well, I could make like a plant bandana with all these kind of
Nice.
patterned plants on it.
And
And
those are those from drawings that you make of the plants? Very nice.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
I invited myself to a plant store near me in Brooklyn, and I was like, what if I just hung out in your backyard and called it like a residency? And they're like, yeah, you could do that if you want.
I love it. That's great.
Um,
Cool.
yeah,
Shall we?
they just worked around me.
All right. You became like a plant yourself. So shall we draw?
Ooh, it's
Oh,
nice.
oh, thanks. So I'm just getting the camera set up to draw. These are my, and sometimes I work on color paper. One thing, and let's see if we can. I'm trying to get it. All right. All right. Well, those of you who are joining us, please go ahead and feel free to grab some paper and a pen and draw with us, if you like. Let me get it. Okay. And how do you prefer to work? Do you tend to like sketching first, or do you go right into your computer, or how
I
does that work for you?
I have sketchbooks which have really rudimentary kind of scratchings that aren't really aesthetic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in order to, I do a lot of pattern and ornament,
Right.
and so that involves um, making repeated shapes. And while I do totally appreciate the both the physicality and the aesthetic of hand drawn stuff,
Right.
um, to do a pattern is just it's just so dumb because to make one thing a bunch of
Right.
times is really laborious, and you can spend an hour doing it and then be like, ah, no, that should have been slightly different. And then I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't say the total waste of time, but it's just so inefficient that you could never. It's not helpful. And so I do things like I draw in Procreate, which on the
Uh-huh.
iPad, which
Uh-huh.
I don't know, not so it's not so romantic. Whenever anyone is interested in looking at me work, I um, always wish that I had like a nice easel
Mm-hmm.
and art on the walls. But the truth is, I draw on a Wacom, I draw on an iPad, and it's very easy. It's not as romantic.
Well, that's interesting that so basically you like it sounds like you like to like create one motif and then you start to kind of play with that uh, in the computer.
Well, I do have I really do like the drawings that I make on paper. It's just they're
Right.
not as functional as it's
Yeah.
like the yes, they're seeds of an idea, but in
Yeah.
order to actually make a pattern idea is not no good to do it
And
by hand.
how did you get started becoming a design like doing design? Were you trained as an artist first and then started design, or was it something that you kind of grew up with and it was a natural thing for you?
Um, I my first job out of college, where I studied illustration at the University of Kansas. Um, the first job I got was at a clothing company,
Okay.
and they did like kind of like hip hop clothing, and they did a lot of kind of graffiti stuff, and kind of I did lots of jobs there, but eventually started making patterns for them,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like making a camo repeat for textiles. But then they're like, oh, what about like an all over with logos, and what about different types of camos? And so
Right.
my interest was through textile design, but the ones that I liked best were the closest to wallpaper.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, wallpaper is really interesting because um, I mean, it kind of it was something. I'm trying to think. When I was growing up, I feel like there was a lot of wood paneling, so a lot of people kind of seem to replace wallpaper with wood paneling. But so it's kind of goes. It has like different moments in time where I think people are really excited about it and use it. Uh, I mean, that's been my experience.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen that myself. I guess that's happened.
Well, I grew up in California, so it might be a little bit of a different thing. But I mean, even then, I moved into a mid-century home at one point, and there was a lot of flock wallpaper. You know, remember the old flock wallpaper? And I never quite understood why would you even put it in the bathroom? But people would put, wallpaper in
Yeah, you want to
flocked.
trap those fumes. We had flock wallpaper in the bathroom in my home in Manhattan, Kansas, and it
Uh-huh.
was kind of like it seemed very kitsch, but it was also kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, I can tell you actually when I was saying that I wasn't sure if it was how timely it was, is that I again because I had lots of time during the pandemic, I decided to become a cinephile, and I've
Oh,
been
cool.
watching lots of movies, all the movies that I kind of meant to watch, but then
Mm.
sort of forgot. And then in doing that, I started taking screenshots of anytime there's wallpaper in a film. And I can tell you that while there's lots of people putting wallpaper in scenes now, after like Wes Anderson kind of made
Yeah.
it a little bit,
Yeah.
it's like a go-to for kind of like a quirky or retro move.
Right.
Before that, it's really every movie from like 1970 into like mid or late 80s
Uh-huh.
before they started getting kind of new postmodern with white
Uh-huh.
walls and gray walls.
Right,
So
right.
really 70 or like 69 to 85, I'd say, is the sweet spot. If you want to watch a movie from then, there's almost certainly going to be some really good uh, or corny wallpaper in there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't judge wallpaper at all. I mean, I'm fascinated by it because it can really create like a mood and it gives, I feel like it gives energy to a room in a certain sort of way. You're making me think of like important wallpaper. I'm definitely thinking of Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange has some amazing wallpaper in it. I think in the main character's parents' home has got some crazy wallpaper, almost like psychedelic. And then there's some amazing kind of deco wallpaper in Pasolini's Salo, if you've ever seen that. It's not something like you want to watch with the kids.
Yeah, I
But
think it might have been too much for me, honestly. I think I started to watch that and then either, well, because of my schedule, the fact that I do have a young kid, that means that oftentimes I I hang out with him during the day. I work as much as I can. I do the tasks and cooking and cleaning that regular living requires,
right.
and then it becomes like midnight, and I'm like, oh, finally, I have time to myself. I'm gonna watch a movie, but sometimes depending on the day, that I fall asleep within 20 minutes. So if you look at like my HBO or Criterion
Right.
channel, it shows that I've started to watch so many films and I've got about 20-30 minutes in and then stopped. But
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's even like whatever crazy orgies or whatever, it's still not enough to keep me awake.
Well, well, also too, yeah, I think I may have been tuning out some of that film and just looking at the wallpaper, not to deal with some of it, because some of it's it's kind of traumatic. But definitely, there's some really like fascinating like deco wallpaper, and then Almodovar. I think I said that right. The Spanish filmmaker has some crazy wallpaper. I mean, you're making me think about wallpaper in movies now. That could be like a whole film series. I love it.
Well, Cassavetes and like Scorsese and like all the kind of 80s, like the New York
Yeah,
ones, a lot of times. Um, but normally um, not really well lit and kind of like brown on brown. Yeah, I can see why it got
yeah.
a bad rap or got overused.
And and also too. I mean, I just looking at your work. I've also noticed that there's some aspects of it feel kind of almost like there's a lot of folk, like more Eastern European folk styles, or I don't know. I'm just curious about your influences, or where you find inspiration.
I mean, my stock answer there
Okay.
is this book, The Grammar of Ornament, um, by Owen Jones, who here, I've got it over here. Um, is basically just a catalog
Oh
of
wow.
different styles of ornament. He wanted to like basically make a yeah, just a library, so you could be like, if you're designing a building or whatever, you like, or like I would like to be in a Moorish style or like Byzantine, and then like here's all the examples of it. And it was written at turn of the century, so obviously features more European and Western type styles. It's got like one page for China and one page for like Africa. And I believe it calls it like, the savage lands or something real colonialist. So it's of an era, but in terms of style, kind of, that style, it's comprehensive if you want it to be like, the difference between Roman and Turkish and Byzantine and Greek and like different types of, but the thing that appeals to me most about it is the combination, is the fact that because it costs so much, to print a certain thing, all the styles were kind of crammed on a single page.
Oh yeah.
And so you've got like pages like this, and these are all medieval
beautiful.
designs,
Yeah.
but they jam them in together, and so it's like that sort of kind of contrast.
Yeah.
Where you have like them all next to each other in different colors, and like just trying to get as much information as possible. And I've always liked that, and I feel like, I don't know, it's probably too heady to say that it's like a, metropolis, but the idea of things coexisting and being remixed and being reverberating because of their context makes me, I don't know if it elevates pattern, or maybe pattern's good enough by itself, but it makes it more interesting to me to see like a Japanese floral print next to like an op art zigzag next to Polynesian textile. These all things that independently are cool enough by themselves, but when you put them together, I feel like that's when it is really interesting to me. So I try and switch it up.
Yeah.
I'm not an amazing drawer. It's tough to draw. So I think folk art is probably more my own milieu, just by dint of like, it's easier to draw folk art and geometric stuff than it is to do Baroque.
I think that there's a real pleasure to it too, that it is more accessible in some ways to people. It's not like an opera where you're impressed by like the grandeur of it. There's something about the more simple forms that are in folk art that I think feel honest to me, and I like that a lot. What was the name of the book again? I mean, the author, was it Franz Sales Meyer? Is that who's?
Owen Jones.
Okay, look at this book I found. This is an old ornament.
Ooh.
My friend, and it's got, we're kind of going off the deep end here from doodling, but look at, it's got a lot of the old, like, it's more, yeah, I don't know what to think of it. I'll take some photographs and send them to you if you want to look at it. It's an old book. It's like, let's see, when is it from? 1957.
All right, I'm copying down because I actually have a whole library of stuff that I borrow from frequently. So Franz Sales?
It's Franz Sales Meyer, Meyer. It says, attention, artists, designers, illustrators, architects, craftsmen, students, librarians, researchers. Every illustration in this extensive archive may be used and reproduced without permission and without payment. That's what I like. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, that's also very much matching with my cheapo ethic. That if you're ripping off people that have been dead for 200 years, then they're not going to sue you.
Well, that's the thing I do like about when things are, like, for instance, I do illustration and I do some album illustration, like I do album covers, and it's a way for people to see my work, a lot more people to see my work than perhaps they would if I had a show, And I like being kind of part of the world in that way, because sometimes the art world feels like it's a special place, which, it's nice to feel special. I'm not putting that down. But I think it's a special container for art to be taken seriously. And sometimes, but I also feel kind of like it separates it from everyday life. It's kind of like, everyone, anyone can read philosophy. Why say only, academics can read it, I guess that may not have made sense. But in the long run, I do think for me, I associate decorative arts and pattern making, and I don't like to make a distinction between that and other art because I feel like it negates the pleasure that I get from looking at pattern, looking at design, and saying that can be that can be part of an artwork, you know? So I feel like sometimes when people try to divide design or pattern or from what artists do, it's a way of taking maybe the pleasure out of what the possibilities of what art can be, you know? I mean, I think art is very much a part of architecture and doesn't exist outside of it. And the context for seeing art, sorry, I'm going off. I just realized I was going off. And the context for seeing art can be anywhere, and that art can respond to where it is. And I feel like there was a time where what artists did and what designers did and what architects did and what decorators did all worked together to create, you know, a total artwork, you know, that people could live in. And I say, why should we why shouldn't everyone have that? Why can't we all just have that? Why does it all have to be separate in special little categories so that only certain people get to collect certain kinds of work, you know? So anyway, there I go. Thanks everybody for listening.
I think the answer is in general capitalism, which is the kind of cop-out answer for most issues. But I've been wondering this ever since I was in school. I signed up for illustration, not knowing the difference between illustration and fine art, and being like, I know you're on a different floor, and this is you're in the pragmatic floor. The artists, they think big thoughts. You just draw ads for money, and that distinction always rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't get into decorative art until later, but that same kind of like class distinction is like, are you working for your boss by making some patterns, or are you creating with your own heart and soul because you're happen to have rich parents and a trust fund? And I was just actually reading about this in my other favorite book, The Sense of Order by E.H. Gombrich. Do you know Gombrich?
No, I don't. Sense of Order. That sounds good. He wrote
some art history books like in the 70s and 80s, but this Sense of Order, it's absolutely fantastic. It's about the psychology of pattern and ornamental art. But he just was just reading about why there's a distinction in the painting of, if you're looking at like a Rembrandt or something, it's like, why do you stop looking once you get to the fancy frame?
Right.
Why do you appreciate the mastery and the creativity of the look on the Madonna's face?
Right.
But then you see her scarf that was made, someone wove that scarf and then he painted it. It was like, well, why not that? Whoever made that certainly cared about it. They had aesthetics. They applied principles of Gestalt, and they, why is that dismissed? It's like, yeah, you did a good job of painting the scarf, as opposed to that is also as equally relevant.
Right.
I don't know.
No, I agree. Sometimes I think that things that are closer to people's bodies or the ways that they live their life maybe are considered not as, intellectual or as elevating as things that would be hung on a wall that you can't touch. I mean, I think it's some really old, Western ideas about art and just the mind and the body and all that stuff. It's interesting. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about Puritanism lately because of what's been going on in Texas. I think, like, who are these people who keep bringing this back about that the bodies are somehow under control and need to be controlled with law in that sort of way. And shouldn't that control just belong to that person who has the body? Why does it have to be everybody's business? But in the long run, yeah, I think there's some definitely there's philosophy to everything. You know, I can look at a design and I can see that it's a smart design. It can make me think about interesting things. I mean, even the design that you used, that you created for tonight's event, I noticed you had some chickens in them. You know, you had this pattern, and then you had some chickens in it, and then these triangular pattern went up from the chickens to these big knives. And then I noticed at some point the chickens looked animated with little action lines, and I was like, what's going on here? Do you feel like you're going in for the slaughter, or what?
I like some hints at narrative. I don't. I like abstract designs too, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough to go all the way abstract.
No, I actually think it's the opposite. I think that sometimes, well, no, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to start to do that, because I have actually been working abstractly in my own, not as part of my work, but as part of my process to develop work. And it's only because I've just changed the way I've worked, not because I've been going after abstraction. It's just the way I'm working is changing, and because I'm working differently, it's lending itself more to abstraction. So all those distinctions I think are, pop culture gets rid of all those things anyway, because they kind of use whatever works. So I think we're living in times where those distinctions aren't as important anymore.
I hope so. I hope so. I feel like that. I mean, it's sometimes like with the current political climate, it's a lot about like what you read this morning about like feel optimistic or pessimistic about way things are going. But
Yeah.
I see several good signs that in terms of general acceptance, and then I realized that maybe that was just my own blinkered view about what's interesting and what's acceptable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in the long run, people will just make what they need to make, and I just want more people to be able to do that. And like what you said, I think the art world reaches only a few, not doesn't reach everybody in the same way that design and things that are kind of more accessible does. So, I go back and forth with it because I really love ornamentation, but I'm also a big fan of a lot of like, you know, uh, Zen Buddhist ink drawings and things that are more kind of religious. But I'm coming around again in some ways to things that are more decorative, because they really do allow the mind to rest in an active sort of way. They acknowledge, for me, they acknowledge that thought still exists. That when you're in a state of rest, it's not like you're completely, zonked out, like you've passed out and nothing's happening. So sometimes when I'm looking at design, it it's peaceful, but it can also have a lot of mental activity happening, which I think is normal. I mean, I think that's cool. Uh, Anyways, so as you notice, sometimes I'll go off. Well, it's old man syndrome.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said sometimes I go off. I have my old man
Oh,
syndrome, and I get on
no.
yeah.
I was just thinking about. I mean, this is oftentimes I have thoughts that I really don't know if they fall in the category of like almost profound or just like so basically obvious that they aren't even worth stating. But I kept thinking about in terms of like uh, creating art that it seems sort of like the most intricate and fastidious pattern that I can make with like all sorts of details and narrative in it.
Hmm.
I it doesn't compare to say nature, like a
Right.
plant, uh,
Yeah.
just watching sun on water. And I was thinking like
Yeah.
that's why I was drawing something and then noticing a cool shadow from like the leaves in the sun, and then being like, "Oh, why am I such an asshole trying to like even draw something fancy when this is so much more pleasing to my eye to look at that than my fussy pattern." Um, obviously there's room for both. I'm not saying that
Right.
you have to choose one, but it kind of made me wish that I were an artist like, like Olafur Eliasson or someone that just like used what natural beauty and then kind of like kung
Right.
fu it into their own shape as opposed to trying to make my own like fancy simulacrum. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I go back and forth. Yeah, you're like, okay, that sunset's amazing. Now I'm gonna go back and do my stupid shit. But you kind of just, I don't know. I just try to think that there's something that I have to say too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a losing gambit to try and compare yourself to the like literally sublime.
Right.
It,
But
you know,
but it is also a moment too. Like it's still when you see the sublime, you're able to see it, and maybe you're able to appreciate it more because you've been making art. Like maybe that has been helpful for you to be able to see how amazing it is. Maybe, or maybe art appreciation actually helps people be able to see nature in ways that they may not have seen it before. So
maybe. I mean, the thing that I've started, like, I don't know how it's connected exactly, but like I've been marbling paper for a few years,
oh, cool.
and it as a practice, like I'm not super good at it, but I think that's partially because the more exciting things to me are not to be good at it is to get a regular, consistent result.
Right.
And that's boring to me. I like it when it's like it looks like like a weird biohazard kind of molten magma bubbling, the mess. I like when I pour in acrylics and oils and all sorts
Yeah.
of things you're not supposed to, and like it gets really weird. And sometimes most of the time it doesn't work. Sometimes it's awesome, but like that has been one of the more appealing things to me. And then I've been struggling to try and figure out how to like figure it into my practice of of dinky ornamental art, and it doesn't quite fit because I think I like it better without me doing anything to it.
Yeah. Oh, so it's like, yeah, yeah. And that can actually, the more you do it, maybe you will be able to find a way to do it that is both chaotic, but also has a pattern to it as well. Maybe that's an interesting challenge. Because I feel like that's when you were talking about that, it made me think about how I'm trying to kind of control what I do in my drawings, which is a big part of when I'm drawing, but also allow for chaos to kind of be part of it too. And all those accidents that happen when you're
Yeah.
doing like playing around with different materials, that's when the cool chaos happens. It's like, how can I marry them both together so that my, so that like my sense of order is not too fascist?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I can come up with justifications for doing marbled art because it is, part of a tradition of decorative art. It's
Right.
often used for like book
Yeah.
covers.
Yeah.
Um, I've done some laser cutting where I can impose my, vector art onto it, and
Yeah.
that's pretty satisfying. But like, it's kind of almost, uh, you know, 50-50 whether I like my intricately laser cut marbled art or I just like the piece of paper without anything done to it.
It would be such an amazing background for a pattern on wallpaper. You know what I mean? The kind of undulation that happens with those accidents and the weird asymmetry that happens could really set off, an interesting kind of symmetrical pattern. I don't know. I think it could be really cool. But I also think it'd be really hard to find someone who could live with it because they'd be walking into their room with the asymmetrical wallpaper and probably fall over every time. You'd
Yeah,
feel drunk in the room, but it would be so cool.
well, I mean, I guess that's why when you were talking earlier about the differences between fine art and or design, the fact that you need to make stuff work happily, like
Right.
you can make ugly, weird stuff that gives you a headache, and like honestly, that's more interesting to make, and it's more interesting to look at for a little bit. But it has to have a function. If even if it functions to like make your coat room interesting, but not like give you motion sickness or whatever,
Right.
then I could absolutely see, like, you're already, the stuff that I make is only appeals to
Yeah.
a niche market.
Right.
Can't really afford to get much nicher.
You can make your own little collection now and then for yourself, and like bring it out when you find someone who's really game. You know what I mean? Because like the history of artists is that, I mean, a lot of artists have sidelines that they would do. Not to make a living per se, but some artists would actually make erotic art, right? Which would be a way that they could also kind of support themselves. So like if their work where they were more experimental is happening, wasn't working out, they could still, show, sell a nude painting, or a nude study, and people like that. Anyway,
Study. If you call it a study, then it sounds more intellectual than naughty pictures. I wanted to make a really filthy wallpaper for a long time, but
I would love to see it. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Flavor Paper, the company that I prints my wallpaper, they like licensed a Tom of Finland one. So they've got just a collection of all Tom of Finland's dudes, and like, well, I can't compete with that. So I'm kind of like, I was gonna try, and then they made that one. I was like, oh, I give up. I can't.
No.
Can't be hotter than that.
I'm sure there's some stuff. Go to those Taschen books, right? Is that what Taschen? Yeah, Taschen.
Yeah.
There's some really good. There's some good archives of stuff there. Hey, we're gonna actually have to stop drawing and end our show here. That looks great. I love it. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Glad I added some color.
Yeah. Tonight was the night for orange, I think. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Dan, for joining me, and I'm hoping that everyone will take the time to look at Dan Funderburgh's website and also his account, and to see all the great work that he's been doing, and thanks for taking the time just to talk. I mean, I learned a lot about how design's different, but also how design's the same. So that's been really great for me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for inviting us. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And I'll tune in next week, see what else is going on.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to have an important guest from the Golden Dome School in Los Angeles, Eliza Swan. And she'll be talking probably about, we haven't talked about it yet. We don't know. We never know. Like you and I kind of knew, but we didn't really know. So, but it should be real interesting. Yeah.
Good to be spontaneous.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much. And thank you all for joining us and listening in. And I hope you had a great night. And yeah, please come next Friday if you can. And if not, maybe another time. Okay. Thanks. Oh, I like it. You're jetting off in your little jet plane there.
Later.
All right. Bye-bye. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.